My name is Kaylin Dwyer, and I used to believe that being the quiet one meant I was safe. That if I stayed useful, unproblematic, out of the way, I'd be spared the sharp edges of my family's favoritism. 2 weeks ago, that illusion ended. Savina, my younger sister, screamed across the living room, "You've ruined our lives." My parents didn't argue. They nodded, like she was reading aloud from a family truth I had somehow missed. No one asked what I did. No one even looked surprised. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I didn't defend myself. I walked out of that house with nothing but a duffel bag, my ID, and the silence I had mastered over the years. They didn't stop me. They didn't ask where I was going, and I didn't offer it. That was 2 weeks ago. This morning, I woke up to 14 missed calls. I didn't need to hear the voicemails to know what they wanted. When the house is on fire, they only call the one who knows where the extinguisher is. But this time, I wasn't sure I wanted to answer, because something in me had shifted. Not with fury, not even sadness, something colder, clearer. What happened after I walked out wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, slow, and devastating in ways I never expected. But it gave me one thing I never had in that house: my own name. And if you've ever been erased by the very people who should have seen you first, maybe this story is yours too. Let me take you back to the moment it all broke. It started with a flicker, one small glitch on Savina's live stream. But in our house, even the smallest ripple could be weaponized. She was perched on the edge of the cream sectional in the living room, like she always was during her milestone Mondays. That night, she was celebrating 50,000 followers. Ring light casting a glow around her like a digital halo. Our parents were sitting nearby, sipping tea like they were watching a graduation speech. I stood in the kitchen doorway, half in the shadows, holding a chipped mug I'd reheated twice. My name hadn't been mentioned once in over an hour. I'd been there the whole time, silent, invisible, unneeded. The screen froze for less than 3 seconds. "Oh my God, not now!" Savina snapped, face still turned toward her camera. And then she looked up, at me. Her voice shifted, sharp and theatrical. "Why does this always happen when you're around?" I blinked. "What?" "You stress me out just by breathing, Kaylin. You throw off my energy." It was absurd, but no one laughed. No one called it out. My mother, Meredith, set her mug down with slow, deliberate grace, like this was a conversation we'd rehearsed. "She's not wrong," she said, brushing non-existent lint from her lap. "You do have a way of ruining moments." "Excuse me?" I managed. "Every time something good happens, something about you pulls it down," she said calmly. "You've ruined her life. Honestly, you've ruined ours too." My father, Harlan, didn't say anything. He never did. He rubbed the bridge of his nose and looked at the carpet like it personally exhausted him. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just stood there, heartbeat slow, as if my body had stopped fighting the shock years ago. Because maybe it had. I turned away and walked to the guest room they'd generously let me use when I came back to town to regroup. That's what they called it. Like I was a stray they let inside during a storm. I stuffed clothes into a college backpack I hadn't touched in 5 years. Nothing sentimental. No cards, no photos. Just basics. Essentials. They didn't ask where I was going. No one even glanced down the hall as I pulled the front door closed behind me. The street outside was silent, heavier than the house, like the quiet after a fire, before anyone checks for survivors. I walked 2 blocks to the corner gas station, bought a granola bar and a bottle of water. Not out of hunger, out of habit. "Last bus runs in 8 minutes, the clerk said. It arrived 15 minutes late. I didn't complain. I just sat on the cold metal bench, arms crossed over my bag, and waited. The ride into Charlotte wasn't long, but it felt like shedding skin. Lights blurred past the windows, too fast to recognize, too slow to matter. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel sad. At the end of the line, I got off and found a motel that took cash. The kind with flickering signage and numbered keys that had been used too many times by people with nowhere else to go. The room smelled like old carpet and burned-out apologies. I sat on the edge of the bed. The springs creaked. I didn't undress, didn't shower, just stared at the water stain on the ceiling. It looked like a broken heart if you tilted your head right, or a star that never finished forming. I checked my phone once. No missed calls, no messages. Just a delivery reminder for a package I'd mailed to Meredith over a year ago. A monogrammed gift I'd saved up for. She never opened it. They never open anything I send, not even me. That night, I realized something. I hadn't just been pushed aside. I'd been erased. The next morning, I woke up before the sun rose high enough to soften the hard edge of the blinds. My body had slept, but my mind hadn't. There was no plan, just a calculation. I counted the cash in my bag, $270 and some change. Enough for a few nights, maybe a week if I skipped meals and walked everywhere. I didn't panic. Panic takes energy. What I felt was something quieter, urgency without noise. I found a cafe near the bus depot, one of those early openers with burnt toast in the air and a handwritten chalkboard sign, free Wi-Fi, refill with purchase. I ordered the smallest coffee for $1.75, then claimed the outlet-facing table like it was sacred ground. Out came my phone. Not for social media. Not for messages I knew weren't there. I logged into an old account from a tutoring platform I'd bookmarked years ago, back when I still thought teaching was something people would respect me for. It was still there, dusty, untouched. The bio read, patient, reliable, specializes in SAT prep and college essays. I updated the picture, changed the name from Kaylin Marie D. to my full name. If I was going to be seen, it would be as me. Under About Me, I typed slowly, I believe in showing up, even when no one else does. By noon, I had applied to 16 listings. Some were from parents begging for help, some were from students drowning in pressure. All of them reminded me of the people I used to advocate for when I had a whiteboard and a classroom, and a version of myself that hadn't yet been edited out. Halfway through the 5th application, I paused. The platform had carried over the old bio line, compassionate listener. It took me back. I could hear Grandma's voice, steady, warm, the way only women in their 70s who've survived decades of silence know how to sound. You were always the one who listened, she'd say. I used to sit at her feet during Sunday dinners, while the rest of the family talked over each other. She'd reach down and pat my knee. You notice what others miss, Kaylin. That's power, not weakness. I swallowed hard and blinked fast, the kind of blink you do when you're not sure if tears are deserved. After Grandma's funeral, a woman I barely recognized leaned toward me in the reception hall. That second letter she wrote you, beautiful. I hope it brought peace. Second letter. I told her I'd only received one. Her smile faltered. Oh, she said, maybe I was mistaken. I wasn't mistaken when I asked my mother about it days later. She barely flinched. Oh, that? Just some old lady sentiment. It wasn't important. Just sweet old lady things. That letter had been intercepted, like me. The rest of that day passed in a blur of logins and messaging. By evening, I had my first response, then another. 3 clients confirmed by Friday, 2 high school juniors and 1 adult learner studying for the GED. The library 2 blocks away loaned out Chromebooks. I reserved a slot, 2 hours each day max. Enough to teach, enough to build. It wasn't glamorous. My feet ached from walking between the cafe and the library. I had one nice shirt, and even that had coffee stains at the hem, but I didn't care. For the first time in a long time, I was building something no one could edit me out of. One student, Riley, 16, said during our second session, "You're the only one who explains this in a way that makes sense." It almost knocked the air out of me. Being seen, after years of being shrunk down, felt strange. Like walking around in shoes that finally fit. That night, back in the motel room, I sat on the floor and wrote my income on the back of the same receipt from check-in. 3 sessions, $60, more than I'd made in weeks. I did the math, enough for 2 more nights. The room smelled faintly of bleach and mildew, but I claimed it. The sheets were scratchy, the curtains barely closed, but it was mine. For a long time I just sat there. hands wrapped around a paper cup of peppermint tea I bought with coins. I didn't scroll, didn't check if they called. They hadn't. Instead, I stared at the mottled ceiling and whispered, "They never noticed what I was building." And then I smiled. Not with joy, but with understanding, because they never thought I could. It was late when Jolene showed up. I hadn't seen her in 2 years. Not since she stopped responding to my texts after one too many family get-togethers where I ended up doing the dishes while everyone else toasted Savina's new brand deals. But that night, she stood outside the motel door, clutching something wrapped in a dish towel like it was fragile or guilty. "They told me you were in trouble," she said. I didn't believe them, not until I saw this. I stepped aside. She hesitated at the threshold, like crossing it meant betraying someone. Then she handed me the bundle. Inside, an envelope sealed, cream-colored, my name in my own handwriting. The soft curves of the letters made my throat tighten. "I found it in Meredith's desk," she said, under a pile of expired coupons. I wasn't snooping. I was dropping off paperwork for Savina. She had me waiting in the kitchen, and it was just there, like it didn't matter. I didn't open it right away. I held it like it could burn me. But it wasn't new. I knew exactly what it was. I'd written it last year, my mother's birthday. Saved for weeks to load a gift card to her favorite cafe. The letter inside had been about second chances, a reach across a chasm that had only grown, a plea to come back to something real. She never opened it, never even mentioned receiving it. Jolene sat across from me, quiet, as I finally slid my nail under the flap and opened the envelope. The paper was pink, soft, familiar. "Mom, if there's still a space in your heart for me, I'd like to sit there again, not asking for everything, just a call back. I miss our Tuesday talks, I miss you. Love, Kaylin." I folded it back, pressed my lips together. No tears, just confirmation. Even my words weren't worth reading. But Jolene wasn't finished. She reached into her tote and pulled out printed pages. She slid them across the little motel table, with a look that said, "I wish I didn't have to." I scanned the first page. It was Savina's new platform, the Success Studio. Logo, fonts, a website layout I knew too well, because I built it, my curriculum, my rubric, my diagnostic flowchart I'd refined over a summer in grad school. The exact text I used on my old site, now scrubbed of my name, branded under hers. Created with insight from a certified educator, it claimed. "She said you gave it to her," Jolene whispered. I knew that was a lie. I let out a laugh, a short, breathless thing that didn't reach my throat. Even my sidebars were intact, even the FAQ headers. My voice was calm, flat. She didn't just borrow it, she stole it, rewrote the name and took the legacy. The word legacy hit harder than expected, because suddenly I remembered the scanned folder, one I hadn't touched in years. I reached for my laptop, hands moving faster than my brain. Grandma. Legal inside. A document I'd forgotten. A scanned copy of her will. A clause in soft black ink, written in the legalese she insisted on notarizing even when no one else took her seriously. All educational content, preparatory curriculum, and materials developed in collaboration with or by Kaylin Dwyer shall remain under her sole name and be protected as her intellectual property. It was signed, dated, legal. She'd seen this coming. The next day, I printed it and taped it to the wall beside my motel bed. On the left, the letter from Grandma. On the right, the printout of Savina's stolen platform. Between them, the space where my name had once lived and had been cut out. They never thought I'd find it, that I'd fight back. But this wasn't revenge. It was recovery. I contacted a local lawyer I found online, someone who specialized in educational IP. Her name was Margot. 50-something, sharp eyes, no time for nonsense. "I'm not asking to sue," I told her. "Not yet. I just want this documented, verified, filed." She looked at the papers, the will, the website prints. Her eyebrows barely moved. "You don't need to scream to take back what's yours," she said. "You just need proof. You already have it." I walked out of her office with sunlight on my back and a new document in my bag. Verified ownership. That night, I sat on the motel bed, staring at the wall of taped evidence like it was a battlefield map. No yelling, no pleading, just documentation. But peace didn't last long. At 10:34 p.m., my website glitched. Then it went offline. Red banner. Account suspended due to copyright violation. I stared at it, motionless, then clicked through the alert. Anonymous claim, filed from a PR firm tied to Savina's brand agency. They were trying to erase me, again. But this time, I was ready. I didn't scream. I didn't panic. I opened a new folder. Inside it, I saved screenshots of every original lesson plan, every PDF I'd created, every time-stamped version stored in my cloud backup. Some dated as far back as 5 years before Savina even launched her so-called academy. I pulled up the will, highlighted the clause that named me the rightful heir to the curriculum. I lined up the documents like chess pieces, one by one, quiet, precise. Then I wrote the counterclaim. No dramatics, no rant, just a title. Filing in response to false copyright allegation. Beneath it, attachments, evidence, and one sentence that felt sharper than any accusation. I don't scream anymore, I document. That same afternoon, I emailed my tutoring clients and contacts. No emotional appeals, just clarity. In light of a recent challenge to my professional materials, I've attached all original development drafts, timestamps, and the legal documentation verifying my sole authorship. I appreciate your continued trust. The replies came fast, supportive, surprised, and one, from a mother I'd worked with months ago, stopped me cold. Your course saved my daughter's future. Don't let them take this from you. I printed that message, taped it next to Grandma's will on the wall, blood and effort, side by side. By evening, the internet had started to stir. Savina made a post, cryptic, dramatic, predictable. Funny how people show up to claim credit when the hard work's done. But this time, the story didn't stay hers. A former intern, one she'd apparently fired without warning, posted screenshots, Canva templates with my initials in the file names, draft lesson slides, chat logs referencing Kaylin's outline. The truth flooded in. The comments under Savina's post turned brutal. Why isn't Kaylin credited? This looks like textbook theft. She really erased her own sister for clout? I didn't reply. Didn't need to. Truth has a way of speaking for itself when you stop explaining it to people who don't care to hear it. Then came the knock. 3 sharp raps. Familiar rhythm. I looked through the peephole and stepped back. Meredith, Harlan, and Savina. I opened the door but didn't move from the threshold. The hallway between us felt colder than outside. Meredith's lipstick was faded. Her hands trembled. We made mistakes, she began. We know. But family means forgiving. I tilted my head. No, I said softly. Family meant opening my letter. It meant not burning my work. It meant saying my name once in your appreciation posts. She looked down, silent. I turned to Savina. Her eyes were glossy, but not from guilt, from fear. I didn't know it would go this far, she whispered. I didn't think you'd fight back. I almost laughed, not out loud, just in my chest. Of course she didn't. I'm not the one fixing your mess, I said, and then I closed the door, quietly, with a click. No slam, just finality. A few hours later, I checked my email and froze. Proposed settlement agreement enclosed. Confidentiality required. They weren't apologizing. They were bargaining. A check with 6 figures. An NDA. A trade. Your name back if you disappear again. I read it twice. Once as the girl who used to beg to be heard. Once as the woman who no longer needed permission to exist. Then I fed every page into the motel room shredder. Listened as silence turned into dust. The next morning, I posted one final statement. Not a video, just a still image. My name, my credentials. And one sentence. You don't owe people silence just because they share your last name. By nightfall, it had gone viral. Women from every corner of the internet, teachers, sisters, daughters erased in quiet ways, shared it not for sympathy, but for recognition. One message read, I thought I was the only one. Thank you for saying what I couldn't. And that night, for the first time in years, I didn't feel erased. I felt permanent. I never heard from them again. Not after Savina's site shut down. Not when Meredith quietly sold the house. Not even on my birthday. But I didn't wait. I used the settlement they assumed I'd reject to fund a small scholarship in Grandma's name. Nothing flashy. Just a quiet offering to students like the ones I once taught from a borrowed Chromebook and a folding chair. One girl wrote, "You were the first person who made me believe I was worth the work." I sat with that letter for a long time. Not because it hurt, but because it didn't. This life, built in silence, shaped by absence, is mine now. No more explaining, no more shrinking. Let them wonder how I did it without them. I didn't rise to prove them wrong. I rose because I finally stopped waiting to be seen.